As usual, the world is busy out there. And so, let's see if there's any questions about something that doesn't come and go, like everything on this earth and this earth itself. So, questions.
So I had this question first. I may have asked this few weeks ago, or I just stated it. So it's like this: nothing can be perfect when seen via a constrained view, which happens when viewed through thoughts. However, everything is perfect when taking into consideration the whole universe.
Well, okay, that's a. So, what's the question? I mean, to me, we can see a perfect circle with our thoughts, but there are none that we know of in nature. So I don't know how when you say nothing is perfect. What about the square root of 2? Is perfectly 2, right?
Now it's 1.414. It's a transcendental number.
Oh, sorry. Square root of 4.
Yes, square root of 4.
Or, for example, we can imagine straight lines. We can imagine a perfect poem. So, I mean, I don't understand what you're saying. Let's dig a little deeper. I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying. Nothing in nature is perfect on this earth, at least not perfect compared to our thought.
Yes.
You know the Sufi story of the celestial apple, right?
Yes.
Do you want to tell it to people real quick?
I don't know if it, like, I may paraphrase it a lot.
Well, that's okay. They'll get the general idea.
Yeah, so I think there was this seeker who asked a sage, I may have paraphrased this a lot, and he asked.
Oh, that's good.
He asked for a perfect apple.
Correct.
And the sage gave him the conventionally perfect apple that looks perfect. But when he turned it around, he observed a worm inside it, burrowed within the apple. To which the seeker replied that that's not a perfect apple. And sage essentially said, there are, like, this is the perfect apple that you can get in this reality. Or I may be wrong here. Can you please complete this?
Yeah, he said that basically that this was had been a perfect apple, or was a perfect apple in the celestial sense, but that when things come to earth, they partake of the earth, and this earth is full of imperfections. There is no perfection on this earth, and so that even a perfect apple would have its flaws. You know, something we can observe routinely. You know, I mean, he didn't say that in the story, but basically he said that anything that comes to the earth partakes of the nature of the earth, and the nature of the earth does not allow for that kind of perfection.
Yes.
And so, what was your point? You were saying that.
Yes.
I mean, I gave you a hard time. I started giving you essentially mathematical, perfection or artistic perfection or something like that, just to push back a little bit. But what was your point again?
Yeah, my point was I can't accept this. Like, this also implies that if I'm being disabled or in constant pain, and it could be simply because of a road accident, like,
Yes.
in the universal sense, that's perfect. In the sense that everything's dependent on one another and it happened exactly the way it must have happened. Or it should.
Very good. Very good. Very good observation. Go ahead.
But how can you accept this?
Well, remember, reality has two planes. I mean, just for simplicity, we'll say it has two planes. And in Sufi parlance, one was a celestial, and the other one was the earth. The earth plane. But another way to look at it, a little bit more sophisticated. Are you familiar with the term dashboard reality?
Dashboard reality? No.
Well, this is just a derivative of Donald Hoffman's description of the fact that our senses cannot see the real world. What we see instead is a computer dashboard with icons on it, and we treat the icons as if they're real. So in other words, the reality that we perceive with our senses is something constructed by our senses and by the mind and the brain, right? But that's not reality. Reality is behind all that. Because as you've probably surmised, we can't find anything physical with science. Some people, the laggards, think that there's still hope for the materialist view or the physicalist view of the universe, but there's really not. And we know that there must be something behind the apparent. And what the Sufis and the Buddhists call what's behind the apparent is they call it the real. Now, the real is perfection, and that's what you're in a way, that's what you're describing. But no, you're describing something else, which is in addition, which is the interdependent origination of all things. This notion of perfect and non-perfect, that's a human notion. And these human divisions of things into, say, different colors or different sizes or different qualities, etc., none of those divisions will hold up. They're illusory. So I think I've covered like 3 points. Do you want to respond to any of them?
Yes. So that
Good.
also implies whatever atrocities that is happening right now is perfect, is totally fine.
You mean if a bulldozer digs up some earth and it happens to have an ant colony in it,
Yeah.
and all the ants get destroyed, you're saying that's perfect?
Yes.
Or not perfect?
I get it. This is perfect. Everything happened because whatever was, things move. There are some cause and effect, but again, cause and effect is again still my frame, it's just my narrative that's talking about cause and effect, I guess. But
well, I think if you examine causality deeply, you'll see that there's some problems there too, at least in terms of contemporary physics. But let's go to the other point. So you're saying that you cannot stand something that you don't like.
essentially, yes.
Okay. All right. So you don't like cancer.
Definitely, yes.
And so of what difference is it what you like and don't like as a human being?
So with respect I had that follow-up question actually.
Okay, good. Let's keep going. Good.
So you are right, this reality won't care whether I like it or not. But in a way, it does still affect the reality, right? Because I don't accept this, I resist this. My next set of
You suffer.
actions, yeah, I suffer, and because of that, my next set of actions are not optimal, or how should I say? It will definitely affect this whole reality, right?
Okay, I really like your train of thought, but see, you've made some big assumptions. The first big assumption you've made is that you know who you are and that these particular thoughts represent you.
Yeah, I am the observer of these thoughts. Yet, when something bad happens,
No, are you the observer? Are you the observer of the thoughts?
Yes, I am aware of my thoughts. Just right now, I'm talking to you. There are thoughts forming up, and I
Or
am.
something is aware of those thoughts.
Oh yeah, yeah. The moment I speak about you or I, that itself is again a thought.
Correct. So one concept is saying something about other concepts.
Just a sequence of thoughts moving from one point to another.
And you've identified with them as yours.
So
Now listen carefully, because this might be a little tricky. But this is what the Buddhists mean when, okay, the Four Noble Truths. Number one, suffering exists. You agree, correct? Suffering does exist.
yes,
And the second point is the cause of suffering, or the foundation of suffering, is attachment to things like concepts or material things, or attachment to anything in the world. Attachment is the cause of suffering.
yes,
And then the third noble truth is there is an end to this suffering. But
yes.
the end to this suffering means you have to have more insight into what you think you know what you are. But do you?
I like. I can remove few things, but I
Okay,
don't
you
know.
think you can, but can you determine when you're going to be born? Can you determine when you're going to die? Can you determine your next thought?
Mm, no,
Red balloons floated to the sky. That's not a thought that you had or generated.
yeah. And even if I predict next thought, that itself is a thought. So
And these thoughts are typically concepts, right? And they're based on assumptions. These are my thoughts. These are my feelings. This is my complaint against the universe. Do you see what I'm saying?
yes,
And to get free of this is simply to stop identifying with a fabricated you. Right now, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. It exists in the imagination like anything else, but it doesn't have an inherent existence because it's made up of all these different things. If I were to change your hormones, right? If I was to give you, say, some thyroid, or if I was to give you some acetylcholine or some an adrenergic agent like cocaine or something like that, I could literally change your thoughts.
yes, yeah.
But those chemicals or those hormones are not you; they're exogenous to you. Do you see what I'm saying? There's so many ways that you can illustrate to yourself that yourself is not as you imagine, and that self is the source of all suffering.
So one question here: who is the one identifying with the me here?
Go ahead.
My question is: who is identifying with I here?
Who identifies with red balloons floating in a beautiful blue sky?
I
Who's the
don't.
one identifying with that thought?
No one. At least that's what I don't. I don't see. I like. I certainly
But
imagine that.
both of us are visualizing red balloons in a clear blue sky.
Yes. Yes.
So whose thought is that?
Whose thought is that?
Yeah, it's not mine. Believe me, I don't. That's not something I would particularly say.
So I wouldn't necessarily say I own that thought. I would just say that that thought,
You own it now.
not necessarily. Now I don't. Now I'm not thinking about red balloon. Okay.
Not at
Right
the
now.
moment, but you'll think about it again in your lifetime.
Yeah, yeah. But again, it
And
just
you
arrived.
may not have originally, but go ahead.
But that just arrived. It's it's like
It just arrived. Okay. Now tell me, how do your other thoughts come up?
they just come up. I don't know. I don't know how they
They
come
just,
up.
they just arrive.
Yes.
Okay. So that's one mystery. Now another mystery is you've already said that yourself is a thought, a concept, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so you're going to stake your opinions on the assumption that that concept is 100% absolutely true.
At least I can't disprove it, and it helped me at least up till now throughout my life.
Did it?
Uh, I mean, it does every day. It helps me save myself. It helps me not to take certain decisions because I may embarrass myself, or it's not good for me in the long run.
Oh, what if you had ignored those thoughts and done something totally different with your life? How do you know you wouldn't say it's better than what you have now?
I can't prove that. That's definitely I can't prove.
Correct. So these are just assumptions, right? But we're looking for truth, and we can't build truth on assumptions unless we could say with absolute certainty that those assumptions are correct. Like Descartes, the great French uh, philosopher and mathematician. I think he was a mathematician. Uh, he said, "I think, therefore I am."
Yeah.
See, he made some errors there,
Yeah. He
and
identifies with
the
the
errors were the assumptions.
Yeah.
Now you're assuming that you have the authority to decide whether something's perfect or not in either direction. But this notion of perfect and not perfect, where does that come from?
From conditioning, the conditioning
Well,
we have.
then it's totally arbitrary. What about good and bad? These notions of good and bad, which is another way of saying what you're saying, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. It's definitely the good and bad. It's again conditioning, and sometimes it's just
If you
instinctual.
live in a country where there's snakes, there may be snakes on the floor.
Yeah.
It's good to have shoes in the house that you're wearing. If you
Yeah.
live in a country where there's no snakes on the floor, wearing shoes indoors could be horribly rude and crude and barbaric. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Now, this is not to speak to moral relativism because there's certain things, guides for living, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not, so on and so forth, that are great guides for living. But if we look for the inherent truth, we're going to have to get rid of the stuff that's conditioned or that's culturally bound, like wearing shoes indoors or not.
Mm. Yeah.
So, but let's go back to the very beginning where you said there's perfection. What did you say that you were upset because things were imperfect?
Yeah. No, I was like what I said was everything is perfect when taking into consideration the whole universe, and I couldn't accept that reality, or I couldn't accept that because
Well, how would you know what perfect is?
perfect is so
A universe in which the planets and the stars revolved in perfect circles. For a long time, people thought that would be perfection. But little did they know that the beauty of our galaxies and our cosmos depends on elliptical type orbits. Do you understand? There's no way for you to know what perfection is what I'm saying.
So by perfection, I meant everything is moving or is where they are. Like they are exactly where they are. It's like when you play
Correct. So
pool,
why do
right?
you need to put the word perfect on top of it?
Just to point to that, but again, that essentially points to whatever I am aware of right now.
And whatever your judgment is right now.
Yeah, I am aware of my thoughts, of course. Yeah.
But are you aware of some of the assumptions behind your thoughts?
No, not fully, because
Okay, so this is perfect. So good. This is called learning about your mind. Now, you've made a division, whether you know it or not, into perfect and imperfect. You've made a division into I like this and I don't like that. Or you've made a division, I accept this or I don't accept that. So all three of those dichotomies, think about them, roll them around in your mind, study them, understand the basis for them, and then examine this. Because, I mean, I'm not saying, to 99% of people, I'd say that's perfectly fine. They don't need to know. But a student of truth must know what his assumptions are or her assumptions are.
so
Otherwise, she's going to be looking literally in the wrong direction.
yeah. So I had just to like the thought that popped up in me again is like that also again means if I am in pain, that is that means I am in pain because whole universe wants me to be, like, not in a anthropomorph.
Okay, what about instead? Let me just give you a slightly different formulation. What about saying I am in pain instead of saying I am in pain? Say pain is present.
Yes, but I am aware of it, and then it becomes the question of why do I hate pain? It's
Well, you're
instinctually.
not alone. But does hating pain make it better or worse or no difference?
It depends. At least it worsens it because it just increases suffering.
Exactly. It hatred of pain makes it worse. And not only that, you extend any pain by being worried about it in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
The anticipation is worse. I mean, oftentimes much worse than the pain, because the body eventually has means of dealing with pain.
Yes. Hmm. I don't know. I'll look into this more. I still can't
Good,
grasp
good,
this
good, good,
grasp.
good. Because in addition to being afraid of pain in the future, one can be grateful for being free of pain right now.
Yes. Yes.
Right, and maybe people in pain, maybe what they do is rather than ruminate on their. Let's take a woman with arthritis that's very bad. Well, one day she wakes up and it's not as bad, and so she feels grateful and happy and lighter because the pain is not as bad. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
And like everything in the mental sphere, unless you pay attention to it, it doesn't actually exist very much because your attention is somewhere else. So you'll notice there's times in your life when you are in pain, but then you get totally wrapped up in something else. Maybe it's some work that you're doing, or a book that you're reading, or even a movie or something like that, and you forget your pain for a while.
Yeah.
And then you learn that you can always do this. I mean, these are like temporary beings, right? But to liberate yourself from pain, first liberate yourself.
So A simple follow up here. I think you brought this a bit earlier as well. You meant, like you said, thinking about something or thinking about pain in this example doesn't change that.
It just wrecks your life. What do you mean? It doesn't change what? More people suffer from fear of pain by far than people that suffer from than people who have pain. Because you're creating pain right now, pain and anxiety. Your mind is doing that.
Yes.
And it's very hard for people to feel comfortable in this world, to feel at home, to feel relaxed, and to feel that everything's taken care of and everything will ultimately be fine. That's very hard for people. Some people. Other people have a different temperament. But I venture to guess that your temperament causes all kinds of unnecessary suffering.
Yes, yes. But yeah, I get that. Yeah.
So that gives you an even more of a greater reason to master your mind rather than being mastered by it, because your mind, goes off and wastes your time being fearful about things you have no control over.
Yes.
Am I right or wrong? Or, does that make any sense?
No, that does make sense. That does make sense. Like, pain is there.
Okay, do you know the serenity prayer?
I've heard of it. I may have forgotten about that. Oh.
It's a very good, you can take the word prayer off it. It's just kind of a way to tame your mind, or and to organize your life. It says, Lord,
I think it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Right, wisdom to know the difference between what you can change and what you can't change. Now, you can't change mishaps in the future beyond a certain point.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so the future will take care of itself, just as the past has already taken care of itself.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you don't plan and you don't prepare or you don't get ready.
Yep.
So remember, you are what you attend to. If you attend to negative things like pain or chaos or conflict or whatever, if that's what you attend to, that's what you will, obviously, that's what you have paid your attention to, and that's what you will be full of. Right?
Yeah, I think there's confirmation bias there as well, because if I believe strongly.
Yeah. Good point. And that's why people, historically, things like monasteries and nunneries have existed. Not that they're perfect and not that they're particularly great for waking up, but what they do, at least for a while, is isolate you, or isolate the acolyte from the pettiness of everyday life. And then, unfortunately, what they do is they create their own pettiness, Humans. All right, good. That's a good line of thought there. I like it.
Yes. Slightly similar to this, in past.
Okay, let me just make one more point. These kinds of things, thinking about these kinds of things, that's called contemplation. All right?
Yes.
It's exactly what a scientist does or a philosopher does. It just has a different aim, or a slightly different aim. Okay, so contemplation, meditation, that paramita, yes, that would be part of it, just because so people know what contemplation is. Okay, go ahead.
So for the past few weeks, there have been situations where I was angry and fearful. Like, for example, my brother not getting a job and something. Like, it's not like that he can't, but he will eventually. But there is this strong feeling of powerlessness, like abject helplessness, where I can't do anything for him. How do you deal with this helplessness?
Well, think the other two emotions, what was it? Anger and fear and helplessness.
Yes.
Well, those all three go together, don't they?
I feel like I switch between them. I'm angry sometimes and then move on to fear and then move on to again realize that this is just helplessness. That's what I observed.
Okay. What I would recommend is that you understand the relationship of those three things to each other. And furthermore, you understand the roots of anger, the roots of fear, and the roots of feelings of helplessness, because I think you're going to find that they're all very, very closely related.
Lack of control? Or
I'm not sure about lack of control, but fear of what's coming next.
yeah, so you don't have control over
and ignorance, right?
But
I mean, ignorance in the Buddhist sense. So what the antidote for anger, of course, is the paramita, patience, right? Which can be cultivated.
yes.
That's why it's a paramita.
Yes.
The antidote for fear is insight. Nothing real is going to get hurt or even scratched. You know, it's not even something the things that are real in this cosmos are not vulnerable to anything like that. Truth is not fragile or it's not going to break or even get chipped because that's its nature.
I think this reminds me of a quote, I think from A Course in Miracles. I think it states, nothing unreal exists and nothing real can be affected. I'm butchering this, but yeah.
Well, yeah, that's just the same. That's the same understanding. Yeah, so good. Yeah, but of course, nothing real exists. Is that what it says?
No, it says nothing unreal exists.
Well, that's a kind of that's in its base itself, right?
Yeah.
That's like saying nothing that's painted black is painted black, or is not painted black, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I think I butchered this a lot. Yeah, but yeah.
So let's go to the second part. What does the second part say?
Second part say anything real cannot be destroyed. Let me just actually Google this.
Okay, so what is real? You might add to that, everything that is unreal will be destroyed, using that definition of unreal. Okay, so what is real?
Whatever I am aware of right now, that's it. The senses, the everything.
And you know that everything you're aware of right now will someday be gone.
Yes, it's like certain combination of this particles you could kind of say, but again, that's again assuming the materialistic nature of things.
Does that cause you fear?
Sometimes it does, and that's because of few thoughts about non-existence or
Okay, so this is where you need to start. So this is where you need to start, because the basis of your feeling of what was it? Anger, helplessness, and what was the third one you were feeling?
fear.
Yeah, fear, anger. Because so this is what you need to understand. And by deepening your insight, you'll understand that whatever it is, it'll be fine. But that requires deep understanding, and this is the gradual path to truth and to wisdom, by the way. And so this is where these these paramitas and the flower ornament, and then where this kind of practice, spiritual practice, not only has huge yields spiritually, but also practically. Because if you understand what your fear, anger, and hopelessness are about at their root, then they will just blow away like a cloud in the sky. They'll do that anyway, but to learn that requires time and patience, a little effort, a little discipline, some contemplation, quite a bit, and then some generosity with yourself, and and others. So we know how to get rid of this suffering, right? The third noble truth: there is an end to suffering.
Yes.
But it's got to be applied. There's antibiotics will kill an infection, but you got to apply the antibiotics.
Got it. Yeah. Then I'll contemplate on this week.
Yeah, definitely, and study these emotions and what their root is.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely face them a lot. Like, not crippling kind of thing. Like, they don't cripple me, but I certainly am interested in them these days.
Okay, so this notion of being crippled by your mind, I would just throw that out.
Yeah.
It's just it goes nowhere. And as a model, I know some people adopt this model, but invariably, especially, as a psychiatrist, I know this one, it never works out well. It's not a good model of the world or of a self. Okay. An agent in the world. Okay. So what, another question before we stop?
Yeah. So this was something that I was thinking about today. So when we talk about now, it doesn't have an interval.
Okay. It doesn't have an interval?
Yes. Yet.
Okay, good.
When I say I am aware of so and so thought or something, it implies, like, if I am aware of a thought, that means there is some interval of time that I am aware of. So my question is, how am I aware of something that takes an interval of time right now, which doesn't have any interval of time? Like, am I too confusing here or not clear?
No, I think you're trying to understand the problem that rational man and scientific man have with the fact that the universe doesn't fit our model. In other words, the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? That are racing or something.
Yeah. Yes.
And about, what is it, Zeno's paradox or whoever it was that...
The arrow one?
Yeah, the arrow paradox. Or also, if you take an interval between 0 and 1 and you start chopping it up, you can never finish chopping that interval up. What are those? Are those natural numbers? Well, I'm not a mathematician. The numbers between 0 and 1, those fractions.
Yeah, the transcendental ones that don't repeat, and yeah.
Those are transcendental?
Yeah, like root 2. Or
no, I mean, let's take the numbers between 0 and 1. Think more Hilbert space.
Okay.
So first we have a half, then we have a quarter, then we have an eighth, then we have a 16th, then we have a 32nd, then we have a 64th, then we have a 1/28th, then we have a 2/56, and then we keep going. These fractions get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, but we never reach the end.
Yeah, we can never. Yeah.
Okay, so now you're looking at thought in time.
Yes.
And you're wondering, what is your question again? How can I observe thought?
Yeah, what I'm saying is thought happens across time, like few seconds maybe. Yet, I'm aware of it this instant. Like, it's essentially you are compressing a thought. A weird thought popped up right now. It says that this thought about what I was thinking earlier, that itself is a single representation in my model. So it's like saying 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, right? So individually, when you split it up, 2 and plus and equal are like separate thoughts. Yes, this 2 plus 2 equal to 4 itself is a single distinct thought that refers to the thought of 2 plus equal to.
All right, let's do this. Let's do this as a thought experiment, okay?
Okay.
Is there a book in the room
Yes.
that you're in?
Yeah.
Okay. What's it about?
It's flower ornament.
Okay. In the flower ornament, on a certain page,
Yes.
in a certain paragraph, in a certain sentence, the word diamond or no, sapphire blossoms.
Okay.
Those two words exist. Okay, now they're sitting there. How much time do they take?
To search for that that
No. How much time do the words take in that book? They're sitting in the book. No one's reading it. How much time do those thoughts, the thought of the sapphire blossoms that's in the book,
that
how
doesn't
much
take-
time does it take?
Not at all, because
Okay.
I'm aware of it at this instant, at the same time.
All right, so now what's your question?
My question is,
So what if you're not aware of it? They're still there, right?
yeah, no.
But they're not taking up any time.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, these are two different thoughts, yet they don't take any time at all.
Okay.
Let me actually dig a bit deeper into this.
Okay, good. That's a good idea. And by the way, I'll pro offer this, that in the realm of reality, a thought does not take time, which is really interesting.
Okay.
But just, but keep going. Keep going in your contemplations on this. This is excellent. Good.
Got it. Okay, I'll go deeper into this. I had one last question, I guess. It's from
Okay.
Flower Ornament.
Okay, good.
So this is in the book 10 Practices, page
All right.
472.
Okay.
So the para goes, also, due to the spiritual power of the Buddha, from each of the 10 directions, as many enlightening beings as atoms in 100,000 Buddha lands came to this world from beyond worlds as numerous as atoms in 100,000 Buddha lands. Filling the 10 directions, they said to the enlightening being, Forest of Virtue, Excellent, O child of Buddha. You can skillfully expound the practices of enlightening beings. We are all similarly named Forest of Virtues, and the worlds we live in are all called Banner of Virtue, and the Buddhas of those lands are all named Universal Virtue. At our Buddha's places, this teaching is also expounded. The assembly, words, and principles are all the same, nothing more and nothing less. Child of Buddha, we have all come to this assembly through the power of the Buddhas to be witnesses for you. This is also true of all worlds in the 10 directions. So, this para, like, what does it mean for Forest of Virtue enlightening beings to be present here and discuss this thing with the Forest of Virtue of the current world?
Well, Forest of Virtue is a bodhisattva, no?
Yes, enlightening being, yes.
And so he's here working with us, right?
Yeah.
He's here trying to teach us.
Yes, but there are other forests of virtue from other worlds as well who arrived here.
There's as many worlds as grains of sand in the Ganges River, right?
Yes, so what does this mean? Like, why does forest of virtues from other worlds arrive here?
because does this earth truly birth anything? Or is this earth from something? Where is this earth from? Let me ask you that.
Where is this earth from? There is nothing from it exists.
Right. So where did the galaxy come from?
I mean, one can theorize Big Bang, but again, that's just a theory.
That's a dumb theory.
Yeah.
So to just say that it came from somewhere else, I don't see the problem. That forest of virtue came from someplace else. See, there's no locations in the universe. There's no size. There's really no time either. And so what they're doing is they're preparing your mind to deal with the fact that oh boy, this is really tough. See, this is why they do it, because you can't. It's very hard to describe verbally.
Yeah. Okay.
But the thing is, the rules of logic that we have are somewhat arbitrary. Oh no, that's not going to work.
I mean, in a sense, it is.
Read the third and fourth lines again.
Okay. Excellent, O child of Buddha. You can skillfully expound the practices of enlightening beings. We are all similarly named forest of virtues, and the worlds we live in are called banner of virtue, and the Buddhas of those lands are all called universal virtue. At our Buddha's places.
Okay, those aren't the lines you just read. Those are different lines, right?
No, those are the lines that I just read. Yeah. No, so
universal virtue?
Yeah, that's the name of the Buddha from all those lands.
Okay.
So at our Buddha's places, this teaching is also expounded. The assembly, words, and principles are all the same, nothing more, nothing less. Child of Buddha, we have all come to this assembly through the power of the Buddhas to be witnesses for you. This is also true of all worlds in the 10 directions.
Correct. Well, as you go through the chapter and through the book, you'll realize that this question of identity and difference, right?
Yeah.
And distinguishing. Let's see, how do I say this? That there's at least two ways to look at this cosmos, things in this cosmos. We can look at them as identical, right? Or we can look at them and discriminate them and say they're different. But that entire discrimination is totally arbitrary and fantastic. I mean, fantastical. Do you see what I'm saying?
I agree with
It's
that.
a dream world, I guess, and you need to read the rest of the chapter, the rest of the book. But it's a dream world, remember. And in a dream, are things different or are they the same?
Everything's connected to one another. So
that's not the question. Are they different or are they the same?
Because they are connected to one another, you can't split them. So
very good. So if you look at the totality, there's one totality. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, but if you look at a part, how many parts are there?
If I look at a part, so then there will be two parts. There's bifurcation.
Okay, so there'd be the planet Earth and then there'd be the planet Jupiter, right?
Yeah, I would say planet Earth and planet not Earth, but yeah.
Okay. So this gets to the question of identity and whether things are identical or not identical. It's a philosophical position, and I really think you need to read the rest of the book to see how they frame the rest of it. All right? But that may not be the crux. The crux here, I mean, that probably is the crux, but also there's a lot of devotion and there's a lot of energy going here, right?
So that's a good
as
point
many
you brought up.
Buddha lands as grains of sand. Pardon me, go ahead.
That's a good point you brought up. Whether things are identical or not. I think there is nothing identical as such. Any
Okay,
two ball
good.
in this universe
Start
is not.
there. Start there.
Yeah. Okay.
So one chair and another chair are not identical, in your opinion.
Definitely not identical. Like if you
All right.
remove things and like if you ask like it's just that
What about the essence of chair? What makes that chair a chair? Well, it's chairness, right?
that is again a combination of how should I say senses, the sound, the vision, and everything.
Well, when a bird sees a chair, they don't see a chair, right?
Yeah.
They see the form, but they don't see a chair.
Yeah, or if they have like if they can see infrared signals or other thing, yeah, they certainly don't see the way humans see.
All right. So is that chair inherently a chair?
No, it is a chair in our minds, a concept, a thought.
Okay. So it's a concept in our mind, and are those concepts in our mind always different, or are they always the same? I should have said always. I said, are they different or are they the same?
It depends how you want to generalize things.
Yeah. I'm going to describe two imaginary ostriches, right?
Okay.
One has purple feathers and it has green legs.
Okay.
And I'm going to describe another ostrich has yellow feathers and orange legs. Right?
Yeah.
Now, are those two ostriches that are in my mind, are they the same or are they different?
It depends on the definition of what does it mean for two ostriches to be same. If you ignore colors, yeah, they are same. But if you don't ignore colors, then they are not same.
So they're both the same and not the same.
Yes.
And they're in my mind, right? They're not in your mind, are they?
Now they are there in my mind as well.
Oh no! Now you got ostriches running around in your mind with red balloons in the sky. So look, so it's kind of like that. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. If you look for these are very deep philosophical points. We've only taken a few lines of it, and it's not giving the whole impression, let alone showing you. Have you read the introduction to this book?
Which book?
What's the book you're reading? 10 Practices? Is that what you're reading, or what? In the Avatamsaka.
Yeah, 10 Practices.
All right. So now go. Do you know where Clary writes notes in the beginning?
Yeah. Yes. Very expensive.
What does he say about it? I mean, it's going to be very, very brief and abbreviated and stuff left out.
Yeah, it was pretty brief. That's why I didn't get this fully. Maybe because this pattern was repeated in few earlier books as
yes,
well.
Yes, on purpose.
Yeah, so I should have looked it at that time, but I didn't.
All right, well, good. So just realize that every book in this book, in this sutra, is there for a purpose, for a reason. And this one, at the very least, asks you to consider identity versus, individualness. And it also asks you to consider numbers. And it also asks you to consider origination in the topographical self, in a sense, in the sense of where in the universe are we right now?
That requires a reference.
Right, and we don't have one.
Yeah, no.
So for all we know, the Buddhist description is more accurate. For all we actually know. Yeah. Because we're somewhere in a universe that has no center and has no periphery.
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell, man? I mean, that's our literal circumstance.
Yeah.
Right? So
I don't know, it reminds me of this. I think what it means to be a human. And I think someone said in Greek philosopher, one of the Greek philosophers said it's a featherless bipedal, and then you can classify a lot of creatures as humans.
A featherless biped.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. We're Neanderthal human.
Yeah, but a lot of
They were.
Again, depends on the definition.
Right, exactly. And so none of these definitions none of these cuts in the universe, as I think you realize, are going to hold water ultimately.
Yeah, no, they don't. These are just interpretations. I had few other things.
None of them. See, this is it's of priceless value if you can understand this. None of them hold up. So no taxonomy is anything but arbitrary.
Yes, yes.
And so as you learn these principles of truth, then when you approach a problem, you already have a huge advantage because you understand some things that are just of no yield, right? Unless you're talking to other people who share the same kind of delusion. Have you heard of lumpers and splitters?
Yeah, I have heard of it. It's essentially generalizers, and I think there's a quote, right? Those who generalize do not know, and those who know do not generalize.
Correct, but splitters can also get into problems.
Okay.
And so every time you're talking to somebody about something that matters, you could think to yourself, well, wait a minute, am I dealing with a lumper or am I dealing with a splitter? Mm-hmm. And what am I? Am I a lumper or am I a splitter? Right? And then you start from there, and then you realize that there's a whole world beyond both of those things, just like beyond perfect and imperfect and beyond good and bad. And now you're starting to get closer to the realm of reality.
Yeah, but
beauty, truth, and love with a capital L.
Yeah, but I think lumping and splitting, they do have their uses in the relative world, though. But yeah.
Yes, they do, but they also have their drawbacks, and sometimes those drawbacks can be huge, absolutely huge. Like I thought all the is the duck-billed platypus extinct?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Well, I always thought it. I grew up thinking it was extinct. It's a warm-blooded mammal with webbed feet and a bill that lays eggs.
Defies all the taxonomy. But yeah.
But understand me. I'm not saying it's a complete waste of time. I mean, yeah. In biology, we could get nowhere without these kinds of distinctions. So I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that just be aware of it. Be conscious of your mind and the kind of assumptions it makes.
Yes.
And it'll really aid you in life. Okay. Yes. Okay, sir. Yes. I'm going to have to run.
Yeah.
Anything else before we stop?
No.
Okay, good thinking. Keep thinking. Yes. The search for truth is the search for truth. And you can really help it by opening your mind, and nothing opens the mind more than Zen, the Avatamsaka Sutra, and some of the Tibetan techniques.
Yes.
Right?
Got it.
Okay, good. An open mind is a healthy mind. All right, take care.
Yes.
Adios.
Bye.
All right, ciao.